Welcome. This is GD100 Introductory Graphic Design, a Mod 600 course provided to you through McQueen. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about the historic beginnings of graphic design. We're going to cover the arts and crafts movement, Art Nouveau, modern art movements. We're going to talk about constructivism and the Russian Revolution. We're going to talk about de Stijl, the Bauhaus, all these different movements. And really, what we're going to talk about is how they culminated to impact what design is today. Because anything that you look at today, you're going to be able to see the historical influences from past designers. So that's a little bit about what we're going to cover. So let's kind of dive into this. Let's talk about the arts and crafts movement. So the arts and crafts movement started and emerged as a reaction to the industrialization of the late 19th century. So if you think about industrialization, you think about mass production, and really the people in this movement, they felt that it isolated the artist. They thought that technology was the enemy of art. And so they had a new appreciation for handmade design, handmade items that were not made in a factory. John Ruskin, he was born in 1819 and lived until 1900. He was a writer and an artist who inspired the philosophy of this movement. And really, at the core, the philosophy of the arts and crafts movement was simply beautiful things are valuable precisely because they're beautiful. So if they're functional, that has not have the impact on whether or not they're valuable. It's beauty in and of itself is a value. So that's the core of the arts and crafts movement. The Century Guild, if you look at Figure 1, they basically wanted design to have the same eminence as art. So if you look at that beautiful chair, it's almost sculptural in its form. Look at the elegant, natural form and the embellishment, in the back piece of that chair. It's really, you can't get chairs like that at Best Buy. So it's beautiful. Now, moving on to the Kelmscott Press, it was established by William Morris, and he emphasized classical symmetrical form in his design. He designed a lot of book design, and he also included a lot of embellishment in the design. If you look at Figure 2, you're going to notice, one, you'll see the classical form. You could draw a line through the middle of it, and the right side is almost a mirror. The left side is basically just two rectangles. But if you move past the framework of the design, you're going to notice the embellishment. Look at the illustrated lettering and the illustrated embellishment of the floral pattern in the background. So that was, moving forward in other future movements, a lot of designers would seek to simplify, but the purpose of William Morris's Kelmscott Press was to make a book more of an art form than just a functional piece. So he believed that embellishment would make it beautiful, and it is. If you look at it, it's definitely beautiful. S.H. Theroux, he believed that the typeface provided a solid framework for a sound book design. If you look at Figure 3, you'll notice that it's a very similar to William Morris. It has that classical symmetrical design. But if you look at the typeface, it's very, it's clean, it's easy to read. You can, there's only about 7 or 8 words across the page. Provides a very comfortable reading experience. And of course, this being the arts and crafts movement, it wouldn't be the same without, a few, illustrated capital letters, just to add that little extra touch to make it more of a work of art than just a design. So that's a little bit about the arts and crafts movement. Let's talk about Art Nouveau. Art Nouveau, it emerged in the late 19th century, not so much as a reaction to the Industrial Revolution, such as the arts and crafts movement, but Art Nouveau happened as a result of all these different cultures finally colliding. So you have Asia, North America, Europe, all these designers, they're going to see what's going on in other cultures, and it, through osmosis, it impacted design. So ukiyo-e defines an art movement from Japan's Tokugawa period that influenced Art Nouveau. If you look at Figure 1, it's a hokusai. It's a beautiful piece of art there. But if you look at the way that it's drawn, the economy of line, the simple color palette, and the organic dynamic curves throughout, and then you move on to, Figure 2, which was Jungian style, you're going to see, you can see it's very similar. They have that sort of organic flowing to the design. It's beautiful because we can relate to it as human to appreciate nature. It does not look like something that was typed on a typewriter or designed with a machine. It looks like someone hand painted, hand drew it. So that creates a special type of appeal to it. So that's ukiyo-e. It was one of the main influences of Art Nouveau. Jugendstil, meaning youth style, was basically a branching of Art Nouveau that showed a particular interest in curvilinear embellishment. So again, that's that. If you look at the floral embellishment and the curvilinear organic flow that it creates, that's Jugendstil. Toulouse-Lautrec was basically a drawer at heart. And he became a master draftsman in Paris. He was influenced by ukiyo-e and Impressionism, and he created beautiful lithographic posters and book jacket designs. If you look at Figure 3, that's just beautiful. It's look at the relationship between the type and the figure. It's design and it's art, really. Similarly, Jules Cheret made lithographic posters for music halls and theaters, and he too had a beautiful artistic organic style. His earlier work was more complex. He would have large crowds of people and a lot more detail, but his later work, such as Figure 4, you'll see it's more about the relationship between one or two subjects and the type. If you look at the figure, she's holding the lamp, and how it, the relationship between the title and the figure, it creates an arc, and that kind of creates an emphasis that makes you read the title, but then through the lamp you flow down, and then you can read the smaller details about it, and then it kind of just spirals back up, so it creates a nice, it's the simplicity of it creates a nice dynamic that leads the eye throughout the design. So that's a little bit about Art Nouveau. So the next thing we want to talk about is modern art movements. So Cubism was an art movement that challenged the Renaissance tradition of pictorial art. If you look at Figure 1, it does not look like a physical representation of the subject. is more to it. So, Cubism applied elements of ancient Iberian and African tribal art to the human figure, and it, was more about creating the mood than simply, representing the form. Futurism, if you look at figure 2, it was launched from the Italian poet Filippo Marinetti from 1876 to 1944, and he published the Manifesto of Futurism in the Paris newspaper Le Figaro. But if you look at the design on figure 2, it's a typographic illustration. The type is on all sorts of different angles, all sorts of different sizes, and it's intended to tell a story. And that's Futurism. Dada was a reaction to the carnage of World War I. So they claimed to be anti-art, and they were concerned with shock, protest, and nonsense. So they rejected all tradition in pursuit of freedom. So this mode of thinking can be seen in this anti-press poster in 1930, figure 3. And what it is the person is basically cocooned in newspaper, and the headings there, what they actually mean is away with these stupidity-causing bandages. So the people in the Dada movement, they were so upset from the rough times and the carnage of World War I that they thought that the media was the enemy, and this is how they reacted to it. So if you look at this slide here, this is basically, it shows how modern art influenced present design. Paula Scher, she's a graphic designer, but when she was designing a logo for Citibank, she got frustrated with design, and she started doing paintings of maps. So this was an escape for her, an escape from the corporate world of design as she knew it. These paintings are paintings of distortions. They're about the way she perceived the world at the time that she painted them. You're going to see, if you look at it, you're going to see Cubism from the tribal paint style. You're going to see Futurism from the dynamic typography and the movement that it creates. And you're also going to see a little bit of Dada. She was frustrated at the time that she painted this, and this kind of shows her desire to escape, because it's a distorted design, and that's how she felt at the time when she painted it. Moving on to Constructivism. Constructivism took the roots of Cubism and Futurism and pushed it further. If you look at figure 1, that's Cubo-Futurism that resulted from avant-garde and the Russian Revolution. So basically, the Russian Revolution caused political trauma, and that kind of spawned a creative art movement. And Cubo-Futurism was the result of that. Suprematism is a painting style of pure color and form. If you look at figure 2, you're going to see it's different shapes. You have rectangles, lines, you have arcs at different angles and different colors, but it doesn't actually physically represent something you would normally see if you just walked outside. It doesn't look like a landscape. It doesn't look like a portrait. It's purely form and color. And then if you look at figures 3 and 4, they were done by L. Lissitzky. Now, L. Lissitzky was a constructor who was a painter, an architect, a photographer, and a graphic designer. So his design style was rooted in mathematical principles and also his strong architectural influence. So if you look at figure 3, for example, it's an interesting balance because you have that strong red of the triangle that's trying to lead your eye to go to the lower right corner, but then you have that strong diagonal and that black shape that's leading you from the top right down to the lower left. This kind of creates a dichotomy throughout the design that it invites you to look at the different elements, and you don't really fall off the page because it's balanced, even though it's such an asymmetrical layout. So that's a little bit about constructivism. Let's talk a little bit about Distill. Distill sought to combine the universal laws of equilibrium and a geometric language to create a balance in society. So its founder was Theo van Doesburg, and he believed that art could be used as a prototype to create a new social order. And if you look at figure 1, he used a concise color palette, horizontals and verticals, to create visual hierarchy in his designs. Figure 2 was done by Piet Mondrian. He was also influenced by Cubism, and he was influenced by abstract painting. And you'll note the strong emphasis on horizontals and verticals. And he believed strongly in creating a dichotomy of asymmetrical equilibrium. So if you look, the top right corner is strong, it's red, but our eye, the way we naturally read a paper, if you read left to right, the lower left dark blue kind of balances it out, and then you have that yellow lower right corner there. So based on the placement of them, the color and the size, it creates a balance throughout the whole design. Gerrit Rietveld was an architect who was inspired by Distill. Figures 3 and 4 show one of the buildings that he designed, and it's almost uncanny. If Theo van Doesburg and Piet Mondrian created architecture, this is what it would look like. That's the way I say it. Again, a strong emphasis on the three-dimensional plane of verticals and horizontals. A limited color palette. If you look at figure 4, it's white, blue, and red, and yellow, just like Mondrian's painting in figure 2. And it, at its very core, it's very clean and it's very functional. So that's a little bit about Distill. And Distill also has influenced present-day design. If you look at this slide, you can see what's called a branded environment. So Duffy and Partners is a design firm that they worked for Aveda Men Hair and Scalp Products to create a brand for them. So one of Aveda's core values is environmental stewardship. So you can see that kind of with the natural colors. And the marketing message was different by nature. So the way they kind of created this experience for the customer is, they applied horizontal and vertical grid structures throughout. If you look at it, it almost looks like one of Gerrit Rietveld's, one of his buildings. Of course, this, instead of a living space, this is a consumer environment. braided to reflect their client. So it's uncanny. It's amazing. You look at modern design and you can see the historic impact that influenced it. So let's move on from just still, because I'm really excited to talk to you about the Bauhaus. This is a significant movement. It lasted from 1919 up into the mid 20th century. They sought to elevate the standards of design and public taste, and that's an endeavor that designers today still strive to do. It began at Weimar in 1919, and what it was is the original, if you look at Figure 1, the original Weimar Bauhaus School of Architecture. They taught solid design principles. It was a master journeyman apprentice system. They developed perceptual awareness in their students. They taught them design principles to create an emotional experience through design. And one of the significant contributors to the Bauhaus was Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. He was born in 1895 to 1946, and he was considered a great experimenter in design. He worked in painting, photography, sculpture, the photo montage, film. He basically wanted to create movement. He created movement in his designs. If you look at Figure 2, look how the car is driving along the typography. The typography is literally a racetrack, but then you have this arc from the lower left that goes back up to the top right corner, and it creates this vortex that leads the eye throughout the design, and it balances it out, it creates harmony. In 1925, they had to move the location from Weimar to Dessau. So this transition happened because of political pressure. Basically, the government at Weimar was trying to put unacceptable impositions on the school, telling them how to design, and they felt that to elevate design to a new level, they had to change the location to a place that would allow them to experiment freely. So it's a significant event for the Bauhaus. It led to a new curriculum, and they ended up doing away with the master journeyman apprentice system. So now it was simply masters were professors. Herbert Bayer was a professor of typography and graphic design. It was a workshop that they did, and he used horizontals, verticals, and diagonals to create a dynamic composition, and he also used them along with significant size and weight in the typography to create hierarchy. So if you look at Figure 1 for Kandinsky, it's set askew. It's a diagonal. You read naturally left to right, but then because it's tilted to the top right, it's going to lead the eye kind of back to the beginning, and then it's kind of a circular flow the way this is designed. And if you look at Figure 3, note the significant hierarchy evident in Figure 3. Not only is the title, I don't know, maybe 3,000% larger than the actual body copy, but the body copy is set askew. So the title really stands out, and then you can see it leads you to the author and to the right of it, and then it makes your eye go down to the lower left there, and you can start reading it. it's amazing how daring they were to use diagonals in the design. And if you look at Figure 2, a big thing with the Bauhaus is they emphasize sans serif typography. So basically, a serif is an embellishment, at the end of a letter. So if you look at Figure 2, that pretty much explains it. Bauhaus, they were all about the simplest solution to a design problem. So the simpler you can make a letter, yet still legible, the better for them. So that's a little bit about the Bauhaus. A little bit about the Bauhaus influence on present design. Let's look at a corporate identity system created for Mohawk papers by the design firm Pentagram. So if you look, you'll notice they use sans serif typography. You can see that in the logo, the Mohawk. If you can see the right part of it, what will you make today? That's sans serif. They use an asymmetrical balance. So if you look at, to the left side, in the lower left corner, you can see it's not symmetrical. There's significant white space on the page, and what that does is it creates a place for your eye to rest. It makes reading that communication material a more enjoyable experience. So that's a little bit about the Bauhaus. Let's move on to Art Deco. Art Deco, it's an eclectic style. It began in Paris. They were all about exuding, the glamour of modernity. So, they have, if you look at the Chrysler building on Figure 3, it's, you have the long, tall verticals, and, it's, almost aerodynamic in the shape of it. And if you look at Figure 1, this crystalline faceted form, they have geometric shapes, throughout, and it is beautiful, and it is glamorous. So Art Deco is about glamorizing modernity. A big contributor to Art Deco was the New York World's Fair of 1930 and 1940. So not only did that glamorize, how society was at present times, but it promised a glimpse into the world of tomorrow. So thousands would go to it. It was a huge event, and they would see in this fair, what the future would be like. And what this did was it created the social context to see design as a solution for transitioning, today's vision into tomorrow's fruition. And it socialized design as, a valuable tool that's going to take society forward. So, present-day design is basically it's current innovation that's accelerated by the knowledge and wisdom that we've learned from all these movements. The arts and crafts, constructivism, the Bauhaus, Art Deco. At our heart, designers we're problem solvers. We seek to connect a brand to its message, and the message to its audience. And basically, in a time where people are assaulted by the media, by hundreds of messages every day, the challenge for designers is to find a creative, inventive way to create a message. We're always trying to elevate design to a new level, in the spirit of the Bauhaus. So, you can see, I would encourage you, the next time you see something that's designed, think about some of these movements that we went over in this lesson, and think, oh, I see a little bit of cubism in that, or I can see the constructivism influence on this billboard ad. I really want you to just take a look, kind of increase your awareness this week as you see design around you, and try to connect, the historic influences to the current design. So that's a little bit about the historic beginnings of graphic design. Thank you for listening, and feel free to tune in later.